The events began in modern China, with students heading to school on a typical bright and colorful day. One student told his friend Gavin to wake up and sing because it was time to eat. Lifting his friend's head, the guy with glasses assumed that his friend was probably exhausted. He must have been texting Senior Scott all night. Suddenly, Gavin opened his eyes, not quite understanding where he was. The first thing he noticed was the delicious smell of food in front of his nose. As soon as the guy realized what was happening, he hit the table and got up, shouting when he saw the food. Gavin quickly began to devour the food on his plate. His friend didn't understand why he was reacting so violently and asked him to eat a little slower. For some reason, Gavin was so hungry that he also took his friend's portion and ate it right away. After quickly devouring 2 plates, Gavin exhaled, relief evident on his face. Happy to be back. Gavin couldn't believe it. He said he had been reborn. The guy next to him didn't understand what was wrong with him, sarcastically stating that he had starved to death and managed to eat his portion as well. Gavin grinned and confirmed his friend's guesses. He had indeed died of starvation in the icy apocalypse. Taking the guy named Yaniel Parker by the shoulder, Gavin was glad that his friend was still alive. Now they could start over and get everything back. Gavin's nonsense frightened Yaniel, who asked his friend to stop scaring him and asked why he should be dead. The main character immediately asked Yaniel what day, year, month, and date it was. Yaniel was surprised that the guy didn't know, revealing that it was August 8th, 2024. Gavin revealed that there was little time left. In half a month, the whole world would be plunged into an ice age. 3 months of snowstorms, and they would all turn into ice cubes. The normal temperature would be no warmer than -50 degrees. Yaniel laughed, saying that Gavin's jokes were getting better every time. It was the middle of summer, and the temperature was above 40 degrees, so an ice age hell seemed like complete nonsense. The main character continued to insist on his theory, saying that he would need help. Yaniel replied that if he could do it, then no problem. After all, the guys were best friends. Suddenly, Gavin asked his friend to lend him $1 billion, causing Yaniel to spit out his water in surprise. Yaniel immediately refused when he recovered from his surprise. He didn't have that kind of money and wouldn't have it even if he sold his father. The main character asked how much money the guy would have if he sold his father. The answer was 500 million, but who in their right mind would sell their own father? The blonde man approached a red-haired girl named Ksenia, saying that he had reserved a place for her on the 2nd floor where they could have their meal. After dinner, the guy suggested going to his private cinema to watch a movie, after which he would show her something big. Ksenia was embarrassed and told Zach that he was a rascal. Yaniel noticed that this was the same Senior Scott who had cheated on the main character with Zach, the young leader of the dragon group. The red-haired girl's face changed when she noticed Gavin in front of her, whom she did not expect to see here at all. The main character remained silent, and at that moment, Yaniel asked Ksenia how she could have done such a thing, since Gavin had even saved money to buy her designer clothes, and she had cheated on him. Ksenia smirked, saying that since Gavin had already seen everything himself, she didn't need to explain anything. Everything was obvious. Ksenia Scott had also cheated on him in his past life with Yang Ji-feng, but with the onset of the apocalypse, he threw her away like trash. Gavin took her in and treated her like a goddess, starving himself so she could eat, and in return, he received another betrayal from her. Even his death from starvation was connected to her. Yaniel said that Ksenia was caught because she didn't even deny anything. The main character laughed and asked him not to rush. The guy didn't understand what that meant. They shouldn't look at her, because just one glance at Ksenia made the guy sick. Zach had heard about the main character. Gavin was under Ksenia's thumb. She said that Gavin constantly pestered her like a dung beetle. Ksenia hoped that now Gavin would get the message and leave her alone. What he did for her, he did for himself. In the girl's opinion, Gavin was just pestering her. Gavin just listened, hoping their conversation would end soon. Zach continued by asking the main character why he hadn't left yet. Ksenia convinced Zach that even if Gavin begged her on his knees, she wouldn't give him a chance. Yaniel asked his friend to leave because they were only humiliating themselves in front of them. Gavin asked him to wait 5 more minutes. Yaniel was surprised. He didn't understand what was wrong with his friend, why he couldn't see through his cheating ex-girlfriend. Zach wanted to watch his friend's pathetic attempts. If he could entertain him, he would reward the main character with a piece of toilet paper. Suddenly, the main character became more serious, interrupting Zach mid-sentence and punching the pretty boy in the face. Zach immediately became angry, no longer mocking him, asking the main character how he dared. The red-haired guy immediately rushed forward, telling Gavin to dig his own grave, because now he was determined to beat him up. Gavin told Zach to back off, kicking him in the stomach. The blow was so strong that the guy spurted blood. Yaniel couldn't believe his friend was capable of such a thing. Ksenia was scared for her boyfriend and rushed to him. Ksenia asked Gavin how he dared to touch Zach, since he held the title of heir to the dragons. Zach got up again, saying that he had a black belt in Taekwondo and that the main character would not be able to beat him. But every attempt to attack him proved futile, as Gavin landed precise blows, throwing Zach off him. The apocalypse was a disaster, but it was also an opportunity. During this time, Gavin had learned some basic techniques. Dealing with such a show-off was no problem. Ksenia said she would never have thought Gavin was like that. She ordered him to kneel and apologize to Zach, otherwise she would never forgive him. The main character got angry, punched the red-haired girl in the face, and asked Ksenia who she thought she was. Zach said that Gavin had gone too far. It would be no more difficult to crush him than to crush an ant, because of his good connections. Gavin just walked up to the bully silently, then hit him again. After each blow, Zach spat blood. The main character took a small canister out of Gavin's pocket. Before Zach realized what he was doing, Gavin already knew everything. Gavin asked Zach if he wasn't ashamed, asking how many girls he had hurt with this thing. Zach got nervous and tried to take the spray can away, saying he didn't understand what he was talking about. The main character dodged, pointed the spray can at Zach, and sprayed him, not giving the blonde guy a chance to explain himself. Zach's eyes began to burn, and his body shook. Ksenia was worried about him, but Zach told her not to come near him. When the spray took effect, Zach's eyes were red, and he lunged at Ksenia. Using all his strength, the blonde guy started tearing Ksenia's clothes off, right there in the cafeteria. Zach was so overwhelmed by the effects of the spray that Ksenia's cries for help did not evoke any emotion in him. Yaniel didn't understand anything, and the main character told his friend that 5 minutes had passed and they could leave. Before leaving, he explained that the spray was an aphrodisiac for potency. After spraying it, a person lost their common sense and became a complete lecher. Zach always used this aphrodisiac on others, and now he used it on us. Yaniel added that this was a cafeteria, saying that someone could call the police. The main character asked him not to worry, as Zach was used to teasing girls. Some even committed suicide after that. He wouldn't dare let anyone find out about this. Gavin added that, because of his status as the heir to the dragons, he was too proud and would take revenge on the main character himself. Yaniel confirmed the main character's words, saying that with Zach's character, he would settle this matter with him himself. When the friends were outside, Yaniel wanted to know where they were going now. Gavin replied that they were going to sell the house. Yaniel was surprised. He couldn't believe that Gavin would just sell the only house his parents had left him. With $3 million in his hands, he would need to stock up on supplies as much as possible. It was the only way to have an advantage over the apocalypse. After signing the papers, Yaniel added that housing prices were skyrocketing. Even if he wanted to sell it, it would be better to do so later. He didn't understand the rush. Immediately after the sale, Gavin continued to rush, and Yaniel asked him what was wrong this time. They had to spend the money. While at the supermarket, the main character wanted to buy 1,000 packs of rice flour and oil, as well as 10,000 cans of soda. The saleswoman wrote down the order, surprised by the numbers. She didn't know if Gavin was sure about such a purchase. Gavin wanted to clarify whether the store offered delivery. The saleswoman asked him not to worry. They could not only deliver, but also unload the entire order. He just had to give them the address, and they would take care of it. Gavin clarified that the Yaney family had an unused warehouse in the suburbs. The guy immediately understood that he wanted to unload all the food there. Gavin asked his best friend to lend him the warehouse and give him the address, and he would buy something else. 2 girls noticed their classmates. The pink-haired girl knew him because of the rumors about Ksenia's infidelity. Her friend added that you need a membership card at this supermarket, wondering if Gavin could afford it. The main character went to the next department, asking to add 5 more laptops from a popular company and 5 more TVS and game consoles to the list. During the apocalypse, the world will be covered in ice and snow. They will spend almost all their time indoors, so entertainment is a top priority. The saleswoman said that Gavin was now the best customer in the supermarket. The girls were shocked by such an order. 5 laptops from this brand cost at least $200,000. TVS and game consoles are not cheap either. Gavin wasn't done with his order yet. He rushed further into the store and asked the girl to pack all the appliances and down jackets. The pink-haired girl no longer considered Gavin to be poor, as he had already spent at least $1 million on his orders. Her friend had never seen such extravagance before. The girls had only one option. The main character was the secret heir to a wealthy family. The main character had spent enough, but he was basically ready for the apocalypse. Now it was time to focus on something more important. The girls turned to Gavin, saying that they hadn't seen each other in a long time, but in a few days, he had managed to become more handsome. Gavin knew that Sharon Zeller and Jolene Little were real vipers. When the apocalypse hit, they used their bodies to gather a gang of bandits and rob people everywhere. They did the same to him, stripping him naked, and Gavin nearly froze to death. Sharon asked the main character why he was silent, offering him a snack since they weren't strangers. Surprisingly, Gavin agreed, telling Yanni to pick up the order for him because he had things to do. The girls had already come up with a plan to trick Gavin. Sharon knew an expensive restaurant. The dishes there cost at least $5,000. Since he was treating them, the girls could eat their fill. The girls showed the restaurant to the main character, and he immediately realized that the dishes there were very expensive. Sharon said that they didn't come here with everyone they met. Gavin thought the dishes were too expensive, but the girls didn't give him a chance to stall for time so that they could at least place their order. Jolene ordered black gold caviar, Wagyu beef 12, and Arctic lobster, but then she decided to order everything on the menu. Sharon got drunk, saying that she liked the food so much today that she couldn't remember the last time she ate like this. Gavin confirmed that the food was delicious. He was also full, but he needed to step away for a moment. The manager revealed that the price for the dishes was $80,800. The main character approached not to pay the bill. He asked to prepare another 100 tables of the same dishes they had ordered. Gavin would come back for them in 10 days. The administrator did not want to place the order right away, but Gavin handed her his card, saying that he could pay in advance. During the apocalypse, Gavin ate only canned food until he got sick of it. To live well, you need to provide yourself with good food and enjoy it without rushing. Within 10 days, you need to find a place to store all this food. Jolene thought Gavin was stupid, but at least he knew that the bill had to be paid immediately. Sharon thought a guy like him was rare, and they wanted to take him to buy handbags for the girls. The main character took his card as soon as the order for 100 tables was placed, saying that the girls could pay for themselves. Gavin spent almost all the money from the sale of the house. He needed to earn more, which meant it was time to turn to credit platforms. The main character had already squeezed 2 and 7 million out of 36 platforms, and there were still so many options for earning money left. Sharon called Gavin and asked the main character where he was, as it was time to pay the bill. Gavin grinned and said that something had come up and he needed to go home. Sharon understood that the guy wasn't going to pay, so she asked why Gavin didn't want to pay if he had invited them to eat. Gavin asked the girls when he had invited them. They had dragged him to this restaurant themselves. Besides, they had ordered all the food, and he was not obliged to pay. Sharon yelled at him, asking how Gavin could call himself a man after that, since it had turned out to be so expensive, and the girls now had to pay. The main character had already warned them that the food was expensive, but they had ordered so much themselves, and now they were complaining about the prices. Sharon called him an idiot, saying that if he couldn't afford such expenses, he should have kept quiet. The guy could afford such dishes. He asked Sharon to find out something from the girl at the reception. The administrator revealed that the young gentleman had ordered 100 tables of the same dishes they had ordered. Sharon begged Gavin to come back and pay the bill. Since he was so rich, the guy could surely afford it. Gavin considered this to be impudent. He had no intention of indulging the girls, so he hung up the phone. The girls were making a lot of noise, and the manager asked them to behave more appropriately, as loud noise was not allowed in their restaurant. Sharon decided to call Hunter, thinking that if she kept him company in the evening, the girls would be able to teach Gavin a lesson. Standing in front of the lottery entrance, the main character was surprised that he had forgotten about it. In his past life, around this time, he had guessed the first 5 numbers in the lottery and won 3,000. If he could win the first prize by buying a few dozen tickets, he would have enough money to support himself at the beginning of the apocalypse. After buying the tickets, Gavin just had to wait a couple of days for the results to be announced. Gavin returned to his best friend. Yaniel was sad because the guy went to a fancy restaurant with the girls, leaving him to eat ordinary noodles and unload goods. Later, Yaniel still didn't understand the point of spending money on all this. The main character said that when the apocalypse came, it would help them survive. Many people would die of cold and hunger. Even for a small piece of food, they would agree to anything. Yaniel replied that if Gavin had been normal from the start, he would have thought the guy was crazy. But as it was, he just couldn't believe what he was saying. The main character asked him not to rush, that in a few days, his friend would believe him. As they left the warehouse, 2 guys were already waiting for the main character, asking if his name was Gavin Clark. The main character confirmed that this was his name, and asked if they were Hunter Walsh's henchmen. The bald man said that Gavin had dared to hit Hunter's woman, and that meant he had brought big trouble upon himself. Yaniel immediately declared that if the men did anything, he would call the police right away. The bald man asked him to do so in order to see whether the police would arrive faster, or he would break Yaniel's legs. Gavin raised his hand and asked his friend to calm down, saying that there was no need to call the police. Yaniel stated that his father was the head of Parker Buildings. They could discuss everything peacefully so that he wouldn't touch Gavin. The bald guy asked him not to worry. They weren't going to touch Yaniel. They were only interested in Gavin Clark. The thugs pushed Yaniel, and the man said that Hunter would get his skull broken for provoking them. Gavin easily dodged the bat attack, saying it was slow and clumsy. Immediately after that, the main character kicked the man in the stomach, knocking the bat out of his hands. Gavin took his bat and delivered a follow-up blow. His attacks were so powerful that the man vomited blood after each swing. The other thugs were afraid to attack him, considering the main character to be very cruel. Gavin turned to the bullies, saying with a smirk that they could all attack him at once. As soon as they rushed into battle, the main character easily defeated the entire group of thugs. Yaniel couldn't believe that this was the same Gavin he knew, because he had never seen his friend fight everyone at once before. When all the thugs were on the ground, Gavin wanted to continue the fight, but they apologized and surrendered. The main character said that if they had had enough, then each of them should transfer him 100,000, even though it was extortion. They came to cause him trouble, so a simple apology wasn't enough. Soon, he received 600,000 in his account. It wasn't about his cruelty, but the fact that he had survived the apocalypse. His worldview was no longer that of an ordinary student. Besides, Hunter Walsh and his friends had done terrible things during the apocalypse, so his cruelty was nothing compared to their actions. Gavin cheered up Yaniel, saying that he would take him to a fun place so that he wouldn't be sad. The guys ended up at a club, and Yaniel really liked it there, so he decided to relax properly. Gavin asked the manager to call Mr. Jacobus, as he had brought him some goods. Soon, a bunch of security guards showed up around them, and Yaniel was scared, not thinking it was fun. Yaniel sarcastically said that he was already jumping for joy. They apparently had different ideas about entertainment. Mr. Lo Jacobus met with the main character and asked what goods he wanted to offer, as they had not met before. Gavin revealed that they had indeed met for the first time. They had received good goods, so he had come. Mr. Jacobus noticed that the guys had come empty-handed and asked them where the goods were. Gavin revealed that the goods were in their bodies. Mr. Lo became interested in this, as they were the first to offer themselves as goods. The guards surrounded the boys, and Yaniel became frightened, trying to protect himself with his father's title. Mr. Lo specialized in organ trafficking. The goods were their bodies, so there was no need to panic. Gavin asked Jacobus what the problem was, or if he didn't dare buy anything from them. Mr. Lo called it nonsense. There was nothing he couldn't buy. The main character offered the first deal, 10 million for all the organs in his body. Mr. Lo lowered the price to 5 million. Control became tighter, and the market price fell. Gavin agreed, but he had a condition. He wanted the money up front, and he would deliver the body within 3 days. Mr. Jacobus wasn't worried. He had millions of ways to find the guy, so he asked the guard to get the bond issue agreements. Gavin asked for 2 contracts, but Yaniel immediately started saying that he wasn't for sale. The guard put his gun to Yaniel's head, telling him to shut up and sign the contract. Yaniel was surprised by Gavin's decision. He had gone out for entertainment, and his friend had literally sold him out. Gavin asked him not to worry about such trifles, and suggested that his friend go somewhere else. Yaniel had heard of Mr. Lowe, a notorious gang leader, a real devil incarnate, with connections everywhere, who would tear the guys to pieces in 3 days. Gavin replied that he had done far worse things, and had no conscience whatsoever. Who knew how many organs he had sold over the years, or how many lives he had ruined, but in 3 days, he would be dead. Yaniel didn't believe that his friend was going to go against Mr. Lowe. He wasn't just a street thug like Hunter. His people had more guns than there were people on the planet. The main character went to a rental agency, and the girl asked if he was sure he only wanted to rent this villa, to which Gavin agreed. Yaniel ended up confused, asking his friend why he needed a villa now. Gavin replied that it had its advantages. In his past life, during a disaster, the villa was the place where the least damage occurred, and the most abundant supplies were found. It was a place where it was possible to survive, and in the end, he died there. Many people lost their sanity there. He witnessed inhuman acts committed by people and tragedies that even demons would not have committed. Since he died here in his past life, his new one would begin here as well. The administrator said the villa was not for rent, but Gavin insisted that he would double the price. The girl still didn't want to rent the villa, but Gavin raised his offer 5-fold, and even that didn't work. In the end, he decided to raise the price 10-fold and pay for the first month right away. The administrator asked him not to worry. Even if she had to humiliate herself in front of the owner, she would make him rent out the villa. Gavin had only one condition. He wanted to renovate it from start to finish. That wasn't a problem, as the villa itself was just a shell. Ksenia and the woman entered the office, and she said that the girl should grab the young Mr. Zach. Her mother's future happiness depended on her. Yaniel didn't understand what she was doing there. As it turned out, the villa belonged to Zach. Ksenia noticed the guy and told Gavin that she hadn't even settled her accounts with him, and he was already stalking her. The girl's mother decided to explain everything to Gavin, saying that a poor student from a lower class like him was of no interest to Ksenia. It was useless to try, even if he followed her to the ends of the earth. Gavin thought they had completely lost their minds. The mother was surprised that Gavin dared to insult her. She could call his school and have him expelled without any problems. The main character said they could have hung him. Now he had nothing to do with Ksenia, because he had come just to rent this house. Ksenia laughed. Gavin could barely scrape together a couple hundred for monthly rent, and the rent for this house was no less than $20,000 a month. The administrator returned, the contract was ready, and the monthly rent was $25,000. Ksenia thought that he was going to such extremes just to get her back, but it was useless. Her mother asked the girl to leave, as $25,000 a month was not enough for Ksenia's standards. The administrator said that at Mr. Clark's request, the rent would be increased tenfold, and the first month would be $250,000. Ksenia said that he was just playing games. Who could be so stupid as to raise the rent tenfold? The girls didn't believe he had that kind of money, but Gavin had already transferred the money and received the keys to the house. His mother thought that Ksenia had underestimated Gavin, but she considered it impossible since he was an orphan. The main character remembered that Yaniel was acquainted with the head of Rainbow Paradise, the largest renovation company in the city. He wanted Yanni's father to hire them to renovate the villa. Yanni didn't understand what he was up to, since he had already paid 10 times more for the villa. The main character asked Yaniel to stop asking questions and arrange a meeting for him. He would find out everything that evening. Yaniel had already done everything. Rainbow Paradise was fully booked today, but his father pulled some strings, and the company boss moved some things around to make room for a meeting with Gavin. Yaniel's father was indeed very influential, and the main character wanted to give him a whole box of noodles as a token of gratitude. Yaniel considered this gift cheap, but Gavin convinced him that his father would soon be praising this noodles. His mother told Ksenia that Zach would pay for the repairs. All that was left was to make sure everything went smoothly. Rainbow Paradise had the best materials for repairs. Ksenia noticed that Gavin and Yaniel were behind her again, and they already had an appointment. The girl called Gavin restless. She came here and he followed. She assumed that the guy was still naively trying to get her back. The main character sighed heavily, wondering how they could have run into the two girls again. Yaniel said that Gavin was actually doing repairs too. The girl didn't care that he was repairing a house that didn't even belong to him. The girls weren't sure if Gavin was really here for renovations, but whether it was true or not, he was just pretending to be rich. The administrator noticed that Mr. Zhao had arrived, and the man wanted to know who he was meeting with. The mother was delighted that it was indeed Mr. Zhao from Rainbow Paradise. She couldn't imagine that Zach had such connections that he could arrange a private meeting for them. The woman showed Gavin the reality. They had different statuses. They were both here for repairs, but her, Ksenia, would talk to Mr. Zhao, while he would just stand there and be jealous. Ksenia thought that Mr. Zhao wanted to meet her, so she held out her hand to introduce herself. Upon learning that the girl's name was not Gavin, Mr. Zhao pushed her away and told her not to distract him. After meeting the real Gavin, Zhao did not expect such a young guy, so he needed to discuss the details right away. The girls did not understand how Gavin could have arranged a meeting with him. Ksenia believed that it was his friend's doing, as Gavin himself did not have such connections. Upon learning that Gavin wanted to renovate the villa, Zhao stood up and said that renovating the villa was a small matter. The budget would be between 5 and 600,000, or better yet, between 3 and 5 million. That was more than enough. Mr. Zhao would ask the design director to discuss the details with him. The main character thought it would be better to discuss the details of the villa renovation with him. Mr. Zhao said he was a little busy. He only personally handled large projects. The main character considered his villa to be a major project. Zhao asked what the budget was. Mr. Zhao learned that the budget was 30 million, and the man was totally shocked. Mr. Zhao couldn't believe that his budget was not 3 million, but 30 million. The designer entered the office and asked Mr. Zhao to take care of the project, but Mr. Zhao decided to take it on himself. Mr. Zhao asked why Gavin was willing to spend so much money when he could buy an entire villa for less. Looking at the blueprints, Mr. Zhao was surprised to see that they resembled a fortress or a bunker. If the budget turned out to be insufficient, Gavin could add to it. In the entire province of Jiangnan, they were the only company capable of implementing this project. There was only one condition. The deadline was half a month. Half a month would not be easy. An autonomous water supply system, an air conditioning system with a temperature range of up to -90 degrees, a ventilation system, a filtration system, and steel plates 20 centimeters thick. It was essentially a military bunker. Even a tank couldn't break through it. Anyone unfamiliar with the subject would think he was preparing for the apocalypse. Gavin asked them to imagine that this was the case. He could pay Mr. Zhao 20 million today as an advance, plus another 5 million. The final amount would be transferred within 3 days after completion of construction. Mr. Zhao liked his attitude. He would throw all the company's resources into this project in order to build around the clock. Yaniel was surprised that this was the same renovation he had mentioned. 35 million for renovating a rented villa was crazy. Soon, money would be completely unnecessary. There was no point in saving it. Gavin asked his friend to warn his father about this. Yaniel wanted to know where he got the money, and Gavin revealed that he had taken out another 10 million in loans. It was a huge risk, because if the apocalypse didn't happen, he would never be able to pay it back. Ksenia asked Gavin if he was trying to get her attention. She wanted to know the final cost of the repairs. Gavin didn't want to answer, and her mother said that Ksenia had spent a whole million on the repairs. Her friend laughed at those figures, because Gavin had spent a whole 35 million. Ksenia laughed, saying that if Gavin had said 5 million, she might have believed him, but 35 million sounded like a lie. The main character asked Ksenia if he hadn't lied. Could she call him daddy? The girl asked him to stop pretending. She could see right through him. He sold his house, which was worth no more than 3 million. The administrator brought the contract, and Ksenia's mother snatched it from him to expose his lie. Ksenia wanted to know how cheap everything was there, but she didn't notice the change in her mother's face. The girl said that the contract was signed personally by Mr. Zhao, so it couldn't be fake. If she continued to slander their company, the woman would be held accountable. Gavin demanded that she call him daddy. The woman was surprised, saying that she was much older and would not humiliate herself like that. The main character could no longer tolerate the woman's insolence, so he slapped her in the face. Yaniel said that the woman deserved it, and Gavin told his friend that it was time to go, after which they left. Ksenia yelled that Gavin was crazy. How dare he humiliate his mother? She would never forgive him for that. The main character returned to the villa, and Yaniel didn't understand why. Gavin told his friend that he would make him believe that the apocalypse was coming. Yaniel noticed that his friend had been talking about this apocalypse for so many days that he had really gone mad. Going outside, Yaniel froze to death. It was only the middle of summer, but the evenings were too cold. Half an hour later, a star fell in the distance, and Gavin asked his friend to take a closer look at it. The real apocalypse would not officially begin for another half a month, but there were many signs leading up to it. The most obvious ones were the cooling nights and the frequent appearance of shooting stars in the sky. Yaniel was watching the stars when suddenly one of them seemed to be falling straight toward them. These shooting stars represent opportunities. Those who are fortunate enough to receive them will discover a special ability. In his past life, this area became a base for survivors because several stars fell here before the apocalypse, giving rise to several powerful individuals. One of these stars fell right on this villa. It was accidentally found by a thief who broke in. Yaniel asked his friend to run, but Gavin rushed forward, as this star was his opportunity. The main character absorbed the falling star, making his friend believe that he had died. But as he expected, Gavin gained the ability to increase his physical abilities 5-fold. Although this is a small thing in the context of the apocalypse, it is more than enough right now. The main character didn't just die, he gained a new ability and became much stronger. Yaniel looked closely, but he couldn't see any difference, so he asked Gavin to demonstrate. The main character grabbed him by the jacket and easily lifted him into the air. Yaniel didn't have time to realize what had happened. Yaniel weighed at least 90 kilograms, and Gavin easily lifted him with one hand. The main character decided to jump from the second floor, holding Yaniel in his hand, who was getting more and more scared. As soon as they landed, a shockwave rippled across the ground, but the guys were completely unharmed. Now Yaniel finally believed Gavin. He jumped from 10 meters and did not die. Ksenia saw a shooting star that fell near the house where Gavin was staying. Her mother said it would be better if it fell on his head, so he would stop bothering them. Ksenia asked her mother not to worry. Zach would be back soon. He still hadn't gotten even with Gavin for that time, and as soon as he saw him, he would make him pay. But suddenly, young Mr. Zach returned, much to his mother's delight, and immediately wanted to know where Ksenia was. Zach immediately told Ksenia to take a shower because he had missed her very much during that time. His mother was still there, and she was surprised by his words. Zach told her to leave so she could run the water. Ksenia asked Zach not to rush. She had news. Gavin had moved to their neighborhood. Zach was stunned. He hadn't even been looking for Gavin, and now he had dared to show up again, right in front of him. His mother told the young man that Gavin had specifically rented a villa here to be closer to Ksenia. Zach decided to call someone. He would make Gavin regret getting involved with him. The young gentleman called one of the boxers right in the middle of a match. Biao asked Zach what he wanted. Zach needed to take care of something, and he could pay $200,000 for this problem. Biao told his opponent that he had business to attend to, so they needed to stop fooling around and finish this quickly. His opponent was the king of boxing, and these words enraged him, so he decided to punish Biao. Biao rushed into the fight, and it took him only one punch to knock out the boxing king. The audience was shocked. The newcomer had managed to knock out the boxing champion with one punch. Yaniel would never have thought that humanity would face such a fate. Gavin wanted to know if his friend had decided what he was going to do. Yaniel asked Gavin to just tell him, and he would do whatever it was. The main character told him to sell his father. Yaniel revealed that his father had a lot of assets, and that he would not be able to make him believe Gavin's words. The guy added that only reserves would be important. Even if his father was the richest man alive, it wouldn't do him any good. Yaniel said that even if he beat him to death, he had to bankrupt his family. Suddenly, Gavin stopped his friend's speech, not understanding what was wrong. As it turned out, the villa was surrounded. Biao and his allies surrounded the building. People were everywhere, and the main character had no way to escape. One of the men started walking towards the door, a sledgehammer in his hands, to break down the door to the villa. As soon as he approached the door, the main character threw it open and knocked the bandit off his feet. The main character asked who he was. Biao was surprised that they had been spotted, and asked Gavin if he was a fighter. Duan Huyao, better known as Biao, one of the lucky ones who gained abilities after the apocalypse. In the early stages of the disaster, he possessed considerable strength. Compared to others who gained abilities, this guy retained a remnant of conscience and did not commit too many terrible deeds. Biao said that Zach Young told him to take care of him. He didn't want to make his life difficult, so Gavin could stand still while he beat the nonsense out of him. The main character had no intention of listening to him. Duan rushed forward, saying that Gavin was talking too much. After throwing a punch, Biao noticed that Gavin easily dodged the attack, saying it was too slow. But Biao was ready for his enemy's quick reflexes, so he decided to try again. Gavin counterattacked faster, and the protagonist's attack reached Biao's body first and knocked him back. His allies were stunned that he had actually managed to knock down the boss who had defeated the underground boxing champion. Gavin thought the enemy was giving up. Biao said that there was clearly something wrong with him, that no one had been born yet whom he would obey. Biao tried to attack again, but the main character raised his leg and knocked the boxer down once more. Lying on the ground, Biao couldn't believe he was weaker. The guy refused to accept defeat. The main character thought it would be boring if he just gave up, so Biao asked him to do something for him, and he would tell him how to save Biao's sister. Duan Hubao couldn't believe what he heard, so he asked the main character how he knew that his sister was sick. Moreover, Gavin knew that she had a serious illness for which there was no cure. He fought, risking his own life and the lives of others, and saved money from matches to pay for his sister's treatment. Biao lost his fighting spirit. Gavin knew so much. Perhaps he really did know how to save her. The main character was the only one who knew the way. To believe or not to believe, the choice was up to Biao. Gavin beat him, so Biao would believe him, so he asked the guy what to do. The guy asked him to go and knock some sense into Zach himself, to make sure he was bedridden for at least half a month. It would be nice to get some money out of him too. The more, the better. Biao had to accept his words, so he called his allies to fulfill Gavin's wish. One of his guys didn't believe Gavin, but Biao had to grasp at any hope to save his sister. Zach thought that Gavin was already in the hospital, so he and Ksenia could return to their rendezvous. Suddenly, someone started knocking on the door. Ksenia's mother went to open it, wondering who could be knocking at this hour. Biao entered the apartment without a second thought, pushing the woman aside and going deeper into the building. The woman stopped the fighter by grabbing his shoulder. She asked Biao where his manners were and if he knew where they were. Zach noticed Biao's arrival and immediately went to him to ask if the guy had done his job. The entire amount was in his phone. It wasn't necessary to come. Zach would have simply transferred it to the fighter. But Biao said nothing and began to attack the young gentleman, causing him to drop his phone. Ksenia and Biao were frightened, and the young man asked the fighter if he had gone mad and why the hell he had hit him. The next second, Biao's allies pounced on Zach and began beating the guy, who curled up on the ground in pain. Zach asked them to stop, offering as much money as he wanted. If Biao dared to hit him again, his family would make sure that Biao's coffin rotted away with worms. Biao ordered the beating to stop. Zach got up and said that he had made a big mistake in daring to hit him. The fighter said that Big Brother Clark had ordered them to hang Zach and beat him, again ordering the men to take the young master. They began to carry Zach away, and the young man tried to understand who Brother Clark was, assuming that it was Gavin. With his head down, Zach could only offer 10 million. A larger sum would have to be discussed with the dragons, and he would have to go there himself. In that case, Biao decided to take the largest amount possible at the moment. Yaniel wanted to know if he would go to tomorrow's practical assignment. Gavin refused. But first, he wanted to clarify where the event would take place. Yaniel replied that it was near the northern new city. The main character decided to agree anyway, as he wanted to visit that place one way or another. Biao called Gavin and said that he had already squeezed 10 million out of Zach, which he transferred to the guy. Soon, Gavin remembered that he had checked his lottery ticket. If he won, he would be able to buy a lot of things. A moment later, the main character was angry. He had remembered the numbers from his past life correctly, but the ticket was not a winner. It could have been the butterfly effect, but he dismissed that possibility. Nothing had changed. There could only be one option. The director was one step ahead. Zach arrived at the site, and the students complained that the internship was starting so soon. They hadn't had enough fun as students yet. Sharon and Jolene pounced on Gavin, asking him why he had run away from that restaurant without paying a penny. Not considering that it had anything to do with him, Jolene took extreme measures, asking Gavin to pay, for which they were willing to do anything. Sharon said that Gavin had learned to be a bad boy. If they got the money, they wouldn't come to the dorm today. First, Gavin asked the girls to lend him 40,000, but this angered them, and they left him. Yaniel returned, and the main character was surprised to see his friend, and immediately asked him why his eyes were swollen. Yaniel cried. He didn't go to his father to convince him to believe in the apocalypse. Instead, he decided to cry because they wouldn't be able to have a normal conversation. It didn't work. Yaniel cried for 2 hours, and his father simply ignored him. Finally, he got tired and grabbed a steel rod, then began to beat Yaniel. The main character asked his friend not to despair and not to rush. It took him several days to believe Gavin, but his father was another matter. Consultant Chi Changdong adjusted his glasses and told the students to get on the buses. It was time to leave. Yaniel wanted water. He had eaten something salty yesterday and was now tormented by thirst, but Gavin had nothing with him. The main character's neighbor overheard the conversation and offered Gavin some water. She had heard about what had happened to him and Ksenia. She hoped that the guy had found the strength to move on. Gavin told Chi Kuetui that he wasn't sad. On the contrary, he was even happy that he had managed to find out the truth. Kuetui also heard that Ksenia had been extorting money from him, and if Gavin needed it, she could give him some. But the guy said that everything was fine. He didn't need money. Yaniel began to joke that someone had fallen into his trap. Gavin told his friend to shut up and drink some water. Soon the students arrived at their destination. The consultant asked the students to get off the bus in the same order they had boarded so that he could assign them to their internships. There were 3 types of internships. The best was on the 3rd floor. There, they would work on key projects. The next best was on the 2nd floor, where there wasn't as much work, but they wouldn't gain much experience either. And the worst was on the 1st floor. Students would either be simple security guards or errand boys. Simply paradise for an intern. Assistant Chi Chang began reading out the names of those who would be on the 3rd floor, including Wang Da, Sharon, and Jolene. Sharon was happy that Hunter had kept his word and pushed them to the 3rd floor. Jolene asked about the promise they had made to Hunter. Sharon noticed Chi Kuikui, who looked too pleased with herself. She was just a country girl with no connections and no past. On the 2nd floor of the internship were Bai Xiaofei, Wang Teng, Xiao Yang, and Wang Lin. Yaniel was surprised that their names were not mentioned, assuming that they had not even made it to the 2nd floor. The assistant adjusted his glasses again and said that the 3 of them, Yaniel, Gavin, and Chi Kuitui, would be interning on the 1st floor. The students couldn't believe that these 3 were stuck on the 1st floor. Yaniel and Gavin had no choice but to accept it. The main character asked the consultant on what basis the distribution was made. Chi Changdong replied that the decision was made jointly by the school and the company providing the internship. Everything was fair and honest. Gavin had nothing to complain about because he could prove himself in any position. The main character did not consider this to be either fair or honest. He reminded the assistant that, according to him, Chinese people do not lie to other Chinese people, but if he could lie, then he was a real scumbag. Ki-Chang asked him how he dared to talk to him like that. Did he want to be expelled? Yanni is a rich guy, but he is on the 1st floor with the poor. The guy said the consultant was shameless. It was all because Chi-Chang had asked his father for money on the condition that he get him an internship on the 3rd floor, but he didn't agree. Yaniel did the smart thing and recorded the consultant's words on a voice recorder, so he'll have to change the assignment. Wang Da said that they should not be allowed to intern because they upset Chi-Chang Dawn, adding that the guys had no respect for people. Sharon stood up for the consultant because he had tried to get them internships at this company, but they were not only ungrateful, but also picky. Wang Da thought that breaking up with Ksenia had turned the main character's head, and he shouldn't talk to him like that. But Gavin acted ruthlessly, immediately punching Wang Da in the face, silencing him on the spot. Wang Da came to his senses and became extremely angry. He rushed forward to hit the guy, saying that he had started it. The next moment, Gavin overpowered Wang Du and began to punch him repeatedly in the face for his insolence. Gavin ordered Wang Du to leave, but he turned to the consultant, after which the main character slammed him to the ground for disobedience. The man approached Gavin and told him to stop, as his teacher, ordering Gavin to stop and apologize immediately. The main character struck him with a swing and was surprised that Chi-Chang dared to call himself a teacher. Chi-Chang said that the main character now had big problems. He would make sure that he was expelled from the internship program and that he would not be accepted anywhere else. Gavin delivered another crushing blow, asking if it wasn't obvious that he didn't care. The main character decided to leave with his friend, suggesting that Chi Chui Tui leave as well. Sharon said that Chi Kui Kui would be left alone on the 1st floor, which would be uncomfortable for her. Why didn't she join Sharon? The consultant told them to figure it out themselves, as he was going to the director to get Gavin expelled. Sharon persuaded the girl to go with them to the 3rd floor. If she contacted Gavin, she would not be able to find a job even after graduation. The main character told the girl to do as she saw fit, but it was important that she call if anything happened. The guys arrived at the largest logistics park in the entire province. A huge amount of goods were stored here, which were sent to large supermarkets every day. Yaniel didn't think he was going to stock up here, but Gavin said that's what he wanted to do. Yaniel thought it was impossible. Even if there was so much here, how could he get it all? The main character decided to go with a group of people. It seemed they were recruiting employees. The employer said they were only looking for women and didn't need men. In order to get a job at the largest center, Gavin said they had to go back for Kui. Jolene said that Hunter had just called. The girls had to hurry up and find a virgin for Mr. Jiang. Sharon didn't think it was a problem, as Kui was quite capable of doing the job. The girls asked Kui about her life. She replied that she had learned many things that she hadn't learned at school. After receiving thanks, Sharon said that they were classmates and had a duty to help each other. Sharon wanted to know if Kui had ever had a boyfriend, but it turned out she never had. The girls wanted to introduce Kui to someone, but she refused because Kui just wanted to work and earn money, nothing more. Kui continued to convince the girls that she didn't need to meet anyone, but the girls kept pushing her. The girls thought Mr. Jiang was a very good man, even though Kui didn't want a relationship right now. The balding Mr. Jiang said that Hunter was doing a good job because the girl looked very innocent. Mr. Jiang was quite satisfied. He ordered the girls to go to the financier and get 30,000 yuan each. Sharon told Kui to enjoy herself, but the girl did not want to stay with this wonderful man. The girls abandoned Kui. Mr. Jiang said that if she was a good girl, she could get even more than they did. Sui told Mr. Jiang that she wasn't like that, and if he didn't let her go, she would have to call the police. Mr. Jiang laughed. The police didn't scare him. He had people everywhere, so there was no one to complain to. Kui was scared. She just wanted to work in peace and begged Mr. Jiang to let her go. Mr. Jiang acted cruelly, knocking the phone out of her hands and taking away her only chance of escape. He couldn't let her go. No girl who had ever walked through that door had ever left unharmed. At the last moment, before Kui's phone fell, she managed to call Gavin. The main character picked up the phone and cheerfully asked Kui what was wrong, because he was about to call her anyway. Mr. Jiang noticed the call at that moment and immediately destroyed the girl's phone. The man asked her to accept her fate. He liked girls as pure as Kui. If she was a good girl, Mr. Jiang would turn her life into paradise. Kui grabbed the nearest object and said she would rather die than agree to this. When the call ended, the main character immediately realized that something had happened to Kui and that he needed to hurry. Kui tried to protect herself by throwing a flower pot at Mr. Jiang. The man became angry, approached the girl, and hit her in the face, saying that she would regret it. Gavin approached the entrance to the building. The security guard was not going to let them in, but Yaniel asked if he recognized the young gentleman. Gavin pushed the guard aside and immediately began to enter the building, stunning the man. The guard assumed that the young man was Mr. Jiang's son. He gave orders not to disturb him, as he had important business to attend to. The main character said he was Mr. Jiang's father, so he didn't want to wait any longer. When the guard realized what had happened, he said they had a problem and called security. Jolene and Sharon walked down the hallway, thinking that Mr. Jiang was having a good time with Kui. Gavin wanted to know where Kui was. Sharon said that he didn't practice here, so he shouldn't be interested. The girl asked the main character to look around and understand where he was. This was no place for his antics. The main character was already at the end of his tether, unable to take it anymore. He hit Sharon. Next, Jolene fell victim to his hot hand, and Gavin struck both girls without mercy. The main character's expression darkened, and he asked the girls again where Kui was. Sharon had to take Gavin to Mr. Jiang's office, where Kui was. The girl said that Mr. Jiang had good connections, and his people were everywhere in the building, she warned Gavin. Without thinking about the consequences, the main character immediately kicked the door open. Kui asked Gavin for help, but Mr. Jiang tried to figure out who let him in. The main character told him to let the girl go. The man asked if Gavin knew who he was and where he was. Gavin silently approached Mr. Jiang and broke his finger, causing the man to scream. Mr. Jiang wanted to call security, but Gavin interrupted him with a punch to the stomach, telling him to die. The main character immediately rushed to Kui, asking how she was. The girl said that everything was fine, but if he had come later, something terrible could have happened. The guards rushed over at the screams. Mr. Jiang barely got up and ordered the guards to beat Gavin to death. Sharon confirmed that he deserved it. Jolene added that Gavin had no idea how much power Mr. Jiang had. While the girls were rejoicing that Gavin would finally get what he deserved, one of the guards flew at them. To Sharon's surprise, the main character did the impossible and took down the entire security team single-handedly. Before leaving, Gavin decided to make sure that Mr. Jiang would never think about the girls again. The main character hit the man in his private parts, forcing him to rethink his actions. Now it was Sharon and Jolene's turn to take revenge. They suggested simply discussing everything. Gavin did not take into account the status of his classmates, as their attitude towards Kui did not justify such an act. Gavin would have crippled the girls to death, but he still needed them alive, so he decided to leave them. Mr. Jiang hit Sharon and told her he didn't need the police, telling her to take him to the hospital. Jiang Baichuan called Jiwei Wutessen. He heard that their recent experiment had been successful. The man needed to get rid of Gavin. Kui thanked the main character, but he replied that there was no need for thanks, and asked the girl about her plans for the future. She wanted to find a job after her internship, but now that the internship was over, she had no chance of finding a job. Gavin had already come up with a plan of action, taking Kwee to employers who only hired girls. Kwee was unsure about this job because they were looking for a warehouse manager, and her profession was finance-oriented. Gavin assured her that she was free to choose any path she wanted. The man asked if they were ready to start work, as they were closing soon. Nevertheless, Kwee took the job. The main character said they would visit her in a couple of days. Yaniel said that only a silly girl like Kwee would accept his offer to be a security guard, even though she was a successful student at a prestigious university. Gavin replied that it was because of this foolishness that Kwee had been given the opportunity to take this job. When the guys left the warehouse, people in suits were already waiting for them, pointing their guns at them. The man said that Gavin's 3 days were up. Their bodies now belonged to Mr. Lowe. Yaniel was surprised that the main character had followed them, as with his skills, dealing with them would be no problem. Gavin told his friend to come with him. The real show was just about to begin. The guys were taken out of town and ended up at an abandoned factory in the suburbs, where their organs would be taken. Gavin spun around and grabbed the guard's gun, pulling it away from his head. Grabbing the firearm, the main character pointed it at the man and shot him right in the head. The rest of the security team was about to kill Gavin, but he deftly shot them all with precise shots. Yaniel was surprised. Such accurate shots to the head were exceptional, and Gavin seemed like a real sniper. In his past life, during the apocalypse, he had not acquired any unique abilities. Therefore, all Gavin could do was practice shooting to increase his chances of survival. Yaniel did not know how to use firearms, but Gavin asked him if he had played shooting games, in which the guy was a pro. The shooter game was very similar to real life, so Gavin asked him to imagine he was in the game. The main character noticed Retribution, and Yaniel knew that it was an international biotech corporation, one of the top 3 in the world. It wasn't that simple. In his past life, during the apocalypse, this corporation had come to power. They used their biotechnology around the world to increase humanity's chances of survival, and many considered them saviors. But now, they were not who they claimed to be. 2 men in military uniforms immediately stopped the main character and his friend, raising their machine guns. Gavin deftly shot them with his pistol. The soldiers were employees of the Butessen Corporation. The girl said she was pleased to be dealing with Mr. Lowe. The organs they provided were quite fresh. The corporation expressed its gratitude. Mr. Lowe was honored to cooperate with such a company. Soon, another set of fresh, juicy organs would be delivered. The man noticed Yanni and Gavin, the very guys who owed him their organs. Mrs. Pei didn't understand one thing: why people who were facing death had weapons in their hands. As soon as Mr. Lowe realized that Gavin had a gun, he immediately used it. Mr. Lowe was shot in the leg, fell to the ground, and told his guards to take Gavin. Thanks to his amazing accuracy, the main character easily killed the entire security team. Another group of men came out of the hangar. Gavin hid behind the car and told Yaniel not to come out of hiding. Mr. Lowe said that over the years, no one had dared to cause trouble on his property. Gavin grabbed 2 pistols, jumped out of his hiding place, and immediately shot all the guards. Even the guards of the Butessen Corporation were brutally murdered, right in front of Mrs. Pei. Mr. Lowe asked Gavin what he wanted, but the protagonist asked the same question of the man. Mr. Lowe considered this insolence, and Gavin, unable to tolerate such treatment, shot the mafia boss in the shoulder. Kneeling on the ground, the wounded Mr. Lowe said that he was not afraid, and Gavin had no idea who he was dealing with. The main character asked Yanni to kill Mr. Lowe. At first, the guy was surprised, but Gavin insisted. Mr. Lowe thought it was a joke, took out his gun, and was about to shoot back. But Yaniel shot first, and in a split second, the bullet reached the man's head, killing him instantly. Gavin said there was no point in asking Mr. Lowe anything, as Mrs. Pei should know more. The girl didn't understand how the main character knew her name. Gavin added that she didn't need to know. If she wanted to call him something, Daddy would be more appropriate. Pei called him an upstart, but Gavin immediately shot her in the leg, causing the girl to scream in pain. She was the head of Retribution. How dare he shoot her, thinking there would be no consequences. Gavin told the girl that her meaningless threats would get her nowhere, that she wouldn't be able to scare him. Mrs. Pei asked him not to shoot, revealing that they had been working with Mr. Lowe for years. He supplied the company with live human organs, which the corporation used for experiments. They were studying human evolution and working on the development of biological weapons. Mrs. Pei could prove everything, but Gavin already knew it. The god Mantis was created by the Butessen Corporation, using resources from Lowe. Gavin had always thought that Zvi had only started working after the apocalypse, but he couldn't imagine that they had been doing this before. The girl was surprised. God Mantis was a top-secret project, and there was no way Gavin could have known about it. Pei suggested that the young man cooperate with them. He was quite capable, and the girl would take them into the Butessen Corporation. They would have more money and power than the guy could ever dream of. The main character was not interested in this. He pointed his gun at Pei, but she said she could be useful. In fear, the girl resorted to desperate measures, saying that she had a talented mouth. Gavin shot her, saying that she couldn't even stop a bullet. Her mouth was useless, just like Mrs. Pei herself. The main character spent some time searching and finally found an access card to the corporation's headquarters. Mr. Zhang soon learned that something had happened to Retribution, and there was nothing they could do. The man was one of the investors in their rotten corporation, and they had hidden the information from him. A guy entered Mr. Zhang's office. It was Hunter, whom he had been waiting for a long time. The man said that Hunter had to take care of a guy named Gavin. Hunter asked Mr. Jung not to worry. He already had a knife sharpened for him, but he just didn't have time to deal with Gavin. The main structure of Gavin's villa had already been reinforced. Mr. Zhao didn't want to brag, but even a tank couldn't break through it now. Next on the list was interior renovation, ventilation system, heating, direct channel to underground water, and so on. The builders worked around the clock. The work would be completed in about a week. The old woman entered the villa and learned that Gavin had recently moved into her neighborhood, revealing that she was Aunt Lou from the neighborhood committee. Auntie suggested that the main character join the neighborhood chat group to stay up to date on events. Gavin agreed, and Lou noticed that he had a lot of boxes from the materials and asked if she could take them. The main character didn't need them, but it was inconvenient to go there now, so he could pick them up later. Lou said she could take a cart and take them away. Gavin asked her not to go there. The repairs were still in progress. Lou asked why the guy was so greedy. She just wanted to take the boxes. Gavin stopped her and offered to bring the boxes over during the week. Auntie refused, saying someone might buy the boxes, so she wanted to pick them up now. Lou asked why the guy was so rude. Gavin replied that it was a small town, so nothing big could happen here. The aunt believed that children these days had no respect for adults. They lived in the same neighborhood and should help each other. Zach Young appeared before the one-eyed dragon and his gang, offering the guy $500,000. The dragon considered the young gentleman too kind. They were part of the dragons and would definitely serve him. Zach told the dragon to take the money and revealed that his only task was to wipe Gavin off the face of the earth, leaving no trace behind. The guy guaranteed that he was a professional killer who would do everything tonight and that he would never see Gavin again. Zach smirked. The main character had no idea how much power he had. He would kill him with a wave of his hand. When evening came, the subordinate told his boss that Gavin was staying at a hotel. He was quite wealthy and had chosen the presidential suite at the hotel. The dragon asked the guys to keep up, watch his every move, and not let the kid get away. Since the day of his rebirth, everything had gone according to plan. The most important points would be completed in these 3 days. Everything would go perfectly if the only point didn't fall through. Gavin heard a noise outside his room and immediately realized that it was Zach sending someone again. In that case, he decided to play along. The boss said they would come in from the back. The main character listened carefully, as more than one group had come to him. Hunter and his guys also came to kill Gavin. Hunter asked the guys to be careful, because last time, the main character not only beat up those who were sent to get rid of him, but also knocked money out of them. Hunter added that Gavin should have been beaten to death. As soon as he died, it was worth cutting off his ear and sending it to Mr. John. Gavin liked the excitement, so he turned off the lights and decided to have some fun with the gangsters. 2 groups of gangsters broke in, and in the dark apartment, they could only ask themselves a lot of questions. The one-eyed dragon thought Hunter was Gavin, so he pointed his gun at him and told the guy not to move. Hunter responded in kind, and the dragon was surprised that he was being defiant. Hunter asked him if he had read the wrong script, as he was supposed to be the one talking. The gang started shooting at each other in the dark apartment, not realizing how many enemies they had already killed. Gavin left the apartment at that moment, noticing that the enemies were playing like little children. The one-eyed dragon thought they had managed to defeat their enemies, so he turned on the lights in the apartment. Hunter was still alive, and he immediately recognized the dragon and asked the one-eyed guy what he was doing there. The dragon asked Hunter Walsh what the hell had brought him here and where Gavin was, but Hunter was wondering the same thing. 3 days later, the main character met with Yaniel, who handed him something. Yaniel revealed that Chi Changdong had used his connections to expel him from school. The main character sighed, thinking that something serious had happened. Against the backdrop of the apocalypse, a diploma was meaningless. Yaniel couldn't stand his smug grin, because the counselor had been gloating over him in the group chat. Ji Changdong claimed that Gavin Clark had caused a disturbance and attacked a teacher. He reported this to Principal Lee, who decided to expel Gavin from school. Gavin wrote a response, revealing that Changdong had been involved with Principal Lee's wife. Every time the principal left on business, they would meet. Everything Gavin said was true, and he was legally responsible for his words. Anyone could view the CCTV footage if they wanted to. In his past life, when the apocalypse broke out, Chi Changdong and Gavin were stuck in school for a short time. After his humanity and all morality had disappeared, he told him this himself. The consultant asked the admin to close the group immediately. No one was to forward messages from this chat, and everyone else was to pretend they knew nothing. Gavin said it was time for them to go. Yanni's father still didn't believe his stories about the apocalypse, suggesting that the boy be sent to a mental hospital. After this important business, Gavin goes to his father and convinces him to believe in the coming apocalypse. Gavin brought his friend to a village in the city, where they saw a beautiful house, whose owner was surely rich. The man continued to drink alcohol, looking at the girl in the cage next to him, who was huddled in the corner. He threw down the bottle and asked the girl what she was staring at. If she dared to look at him again, the man would gouge out her eyes. The man said that he had married only because she had been born, but less than a year later, his mother's dowry had run out. He wanted to sell the house, but first, he wanted to sell the girl. She may be small, but she would fetch enough money for several bottles. Her mother refused to buy her alcohol and even tried to kick him out, so he beat her to death. If the girl dared to disobey, she would end up like her. But the girl did not want to accept such a fate, and in a fit of rage, she bit the man's hand. The angry man raised his hand and told the girl to go to her mother. Suddenly, Gavin kicked the door open, stopping the man from beating the little girl. This man's name was Feng Qiu, a despicable and shameless bandit who, before the apocalypse, was presented with the best of opportunities. teleportation. When the cold weather set in, he immediately swore allegiance to the government, impressed by his abilities. The authorities used the man to transport large shipments of supplies, briefly making him a national hero. But when he was sent to rescue the town's population, he simply ran away with the supplies, causing millions of people to die of hunger and cold. But he did not meet a dignified end. Feng Qiu died in the jaws of an ice demon, and tons of supplies disappeared in connection with his death. There was also a little girl in front of him, but he had not heard of her in his previous life. Feng Qiu assumed that they were human traffickers, and they arrived just in time because he almost beat her to death. The girl was a little thin, but she had a cute face. Yaniel called Feng Qiu a pig, and the man called him a simple merchant and was about to hit him. The man wanted to rush into battle with a bottle, but Yaniel shot him right in the leg with a pistol. Yaniel did not reveal his identity, saying that he would not let a creature like him get away. The girl got there before the guy, grabbed the bottle, and smashed it over the man's head. And again, the girl decided to vent all her anger by beating Feng Qiu with the broken bottle. Yaniel wanted to stop her, but Gavin asked him to let the girl do what she wanted. It must have been too hard for her, living in a cage. Her father's hatred. If the girl didn't let off steam, her life would be completely ruined. The girl beat the man to death, and there was not a trace of pity on her face. People like him deserve to die. Gavin said they were almost late. He decided to go to the roof, asking Yanni to wash the blood off the girl and calm her down. The star was flying straight at the main character again, which was a great opportunity before the apocalypse. There was even more space in his teleportation dimension than Gavin had expected, a place the size of 10 football fields. From the roof, the main character noticed a police car right at the entrance to the building. The man said it was here. Feng Qiu told him to come here. He wanted to sell him the girl. Yaniel tidied the girl up, admitting that she was indeed a pretty and obedient girl. There were cops outside. The guys had guns, and there was a body lying on the floor. Gavin asked him not to panic, as everything would have been more complicated before that moment. But now, thanks to his ability to teleport, Feng Qiu's body quickly disappeared right before Yanni's eyes. When the police and the suspect burst in, the man did not notice Feng Qiu inside. The main character admitted that his name was Gavin. He was a distant relative of this girl, so he had come to check on her. The police officer approached the girl and asked her not to worry, asking the young lady's name. The girl's name was CC, and the police officer asked her if she knew Gavin or Yaniel. CC confirmed that he was her relative. Her mother had once mentioned Gavin Clark. The policeman decided to leave, asking the kids to let him know if they had any clues about Feng Qiu's whereabouts. Yaniel almost forgot about CC. He didn't know what would happen to the girl after her father's death. The main character suggested that she go with them, and she agreed. It would be better that way. She wouldn't survive the apocalypse alone. Gavin allowed the girl to go with them, but there was no place for idlers. He asked if the girl knew how to cook noodles. CC had this skill, so the main character welcomed her into his gang. Gavin went with his friend to his father's villa, and Yaniel said that he was still a little scared. The main character added that there were 3 days left until the apocalypse. They had to kill his father, no matter what. The man asked if the boys had nothing better to do. He told them to get out of there. Yaniel told his father that Gavin wasn't lying. If they didn't act now, it would be too late. His father reached for his cup of tea, but right in front of his hand, the cup disappeared, causing the man to freeze. The man considered it a simple sleight of hand, nothing more. He had seen it all before, so Gavin would not be able to deceive him. The next second, the sofa the man was sitting on vanished, and he fell. The main character hoped that this would convince him. The man grabbed the table, but Pan Jinja still didn't believe the boys. They were still too young. But even the table disappeared, and Pan Jin fell to the floor again. Gavin was sure that this would be enough to win the man's trust. He got up and said that if everything in this room disappeared, then he would believe the main character. Soon, the room was indeed empty. Pan Jin was shocked and couldn't say anything. Suddenly, his father turned around and slapped Yanni with a swing, causing his son to wonder why he had been hit. Feeling a burning sensation in his hand, Pan Jin realized that he was not asleep and that everything that had happened was real. With 2 days left before the apocalypse, Yanni said that his father had transferred more than 700 million. Gavin said they should split up. Yaniel should buy supplies and focus on warm clothes and other things that might be needed in cold weather, while he would inspect the villa and buy weapons. Mr. Zhao stated that the construction and renovation of the villa had been fully completed. The project was carried out exactly according to Gavin's wishes. The main character was more than satisfied. Mr. Zhao worked hard, so he thanked the man. Mr. Zhao said that this was the most difficult project his company had ever undertaken. He personally supervised the entire process. The man would not be exaggerating if he said that even if the apocalypse came with sufficient supplies, they could live here until the end of their days. Gavin would transfer the rest of the money to the man as soon as possible. Before leaving, he told Mr. Zhao not to leave the house for the next 2 days and to stock up on food. According to him, the strongest typhoon in recent years was approaching. Mr. Zhao believed the young man. He was quite tired, and it would be a good opportunity to rest. Yaniel brought him supplies. He bought only the best and most expensive ones available. Gavin asked him to bring everything to the villa, where he would store the supplies in the safest place. Aunt Lu noticed the staggering amount of supplies on Gavin's villa grounds. Noticing a box of sweets, the grandson told his aunt that he wanted to take some candy from his supplies. Yaniel said they had a problem. He couldn't spend all the money, because the guy hadn't spent 100 million yet. Gavin said he would give him the addresses of several large grain warehouses so that Yanni could buy everything from them. In his past life, a group of bandits had seized the grain from these warehouses. This time, they would not get it. The supplier told Mr. Clark that there was one last batch of crossbows left that they hadn't moved yet, but some old woman wouldn't let them work. Aunt Lou started opening the boxes without permission, while her grandson was happy that he would get a lollipop. Gavin asked the old woman what she was doing. She said that the boy had bought a lot and shouldn't mind giving her one lollipop. He objected, but Aunt Lou said that young people shouldn't be so greedy. One lollipop would be equivalent to his apology for what happened with the boxes last time. Gavin didn't care about her suggestions. He started waving his hand and asked the old woman to just leave his property. Aunt Lou had never met such a greedy person before. As the president of the district, she had the right to take things from other houses. Her grandson took the lollipop and began to provoke Gavin, stomping on the boxes and calling the main character a monster. Gavin rolled up his sleeves and started walking toward the grandson to force him to leave the property. The grandson had gone too far, jumping on the boxes, one of which broke, and he fell straight into it. Inside the box were many arrows, and the boy fell right on top of them, piercing his pelvis. Aunt Lou told Gavin that he had hurt her grandson and that she wanted compensation, so she would get even with him. Xenia and her friend were walking through the main character's house, wondering why he had so many things. Yang Jiking thought Gavin was just crazy. Shipping everything in such heat could ruin the items. There was one day left before the apocalypse, and Yaniel had managed to spend all his money. He bought 5 grain stores, so it was time to meet with Kui Kui. Kui Kui was doing well at work. She had even been promoted to warehouse manager, but she was wondering how much longer she would have to work there. Gavin revealed that she could quit her job tomorrow, which was wonderful news for her. The main character wanted Kui Kui to first help him get the keys to the warehouse. He would come to the park that evening. The girl didn't understand why the main character had to do all this at night. Gavin asked her to just wait. Before leaving, the main character asked Kui Kui not to reveal his plans to anyone. Mr. Liang brought a huge supply of food. He told the main character to call him if he needed anything. Thanks to the power of his teleportation, all the grain disappeared in a split second. At the same time, any object placed in hyperspace will remain in the same state. If you put a bowl of freshly cooked noodles in it, even after hundreds of years, it will remain just as hot. Mr. Liang wanted to say something else to the guys, but when he was inside the storage room, everything disappeared in an instant. Towards nightfall, Gavin came to Kui Kui's storage room and asked her not to make any noise, no matter how strange it might sound. The main character used his teleportation ability, and after collecting this batch, the resources he had accumulated would probably reach astronomical proportions. Kui Kui was surprised and asked Gavin how it all disappeared and if the main character did it. The guy said he would explain everything to Kui Kui later. They had to leave now and collect materials from other warehouses. After the first warehouse, the couple came to the observation room, and with each new step, Kui Kui had new questions. The main character teleported the cameras to his dimension to disable them. When they returned to the villa, the protagonist told Kui Kui about the impending disaster, and she believed him. Yaniel was surprised that she trusted him so easily. He said that Kui Kui trusted him so easily. The main character noted that the apocalypse was coming tomorrow. From that moment on, they should not go outside. Kui Kui had to go somewhere before the apocalypse. Gavin asked her to hurry, as she had to return before noon the next day. The one-eyed dragon returned to Zack and told him that they had stumbled upon a group that also wanted to kill Gavin. Zack's patience was running out, so he decided to go and eliminate Gavin Clark himself. Kui Kui brought food to the street animals for the last time. The apocalypse was coming, and she would no longer be able to feed them. The one-eyed dragon spotted Kui Kui. Gavin had been staying in the villa lately and hadn't gone out, so it wouldn't be easy. But he knew that Gavin had been in contact with Kui Kui and that she was close to him, so they could capture her. Soon, Yaniel learned that Zack had captured Kui Kui and insisted that he go to him alone. The main character said that Zack had asked for it, and Zack Jung would not live to see the apocalypse. Zack chose a quiet place, where Gavin went without hesitation, making the young gentleman laugh. Gavin ordered them to release Kui Kui, which they surprisingly did, and the girl rushed to the main character. Zack called Kui Kui naive. It was his plan. While the girl was happily walking towards Gavin, Zack shot her from behind. Gavin did the impossible. He hugged Kui Kui and managed to pull her close, causing the bullet to miss. Kui Kui wanted to run away, but the main character asked her not to be afraid and to leave all the difficulties to him. Gavin wanted to give Zack a couple more days to live, but a window opened up in his schedule. Zack's subjects rushed at the main character to maim him, just as Biao had done to him. Gavin threw a subject face first into the wall, telling Zack that he really didn't want to live. Realizing that his opponent was really strong, the one-eyed dragon ordered everyone to attack him at the same time. The main character dodged the knife blow, snatching the blade from the hands of one of Zack's subjects. With deft movements, Gavin rushed forward and cut the vulnerable spots on the bandit's legs. Zack began to panic, not understanding where Gavin got such abilities. The one-eyed dragon was confident of victory because they had guns. But the one-eyed dragon could not have expected that the main character also had a gun. Zack's excitement reached its peak. He didn't know what to do, so he ran away. The main character's accuracy was unmatched. He shot Zack in the leg, immobilizing him. Zack began to shake with fear, declaring that he was the heir to the dragons and that Gavin couldn't touch him. After shooting Zack in the leg again, Gavin said that he had already touched the young gentleman. Zack admitted that he had lost, so he asked the main character to name his price. Gavin wanted 1 trillion. Zack told him to name his price, and not to mock him, as he didn't have that kind of money. Gavin decided to teach the bully a lesson because he couldn't pay, but he was still arrogant. The main character continued to beat Zach, reminding him that today would be the end of him. Suddenly, he heard sirens. Gavin stopped beating Zach and was surprised to see police officers behind him. Zach was happy that now Gavin wouldn't be able to kill him, but he also attacked his people on the street, which was a direct path to prison. The main character fired again, this time aiming the gun at his reproductive organ. Gavin revealed the reason he didn't kill him was because he wanted to deprive him of the opportunity to die in the apocalypse. Too dignified. The guy didn't resist in any way. He just said that the police couldn't catch him. After a short countdown by Gavin, snow appeared on the street, causing the police to stop in surprise. The temperature dropped rapidly, and the officers could barely tolerate such a sharp cold snap. The wounds inflicted by Gavin's knife began to freeze, creating ice crystals in their place. Zach asked the main character for help. No one understood why it had gotten so cold, and he could freeze to death.